Imagine ruling over a civilization so powerful, so advanced, that its capital rivaled the greatest cities of Europe. A place where towering temples touched the sky, where shimmering canals connected bustling marketplaces, and where warriors, priests, and scholars shaped the destiny of an empire. Now, imagine realizing that none of it mattered, that your kingdom was already doomed long before a single foreign soldier set foot on your land. What would you do if every sign around you whispered of an impending catastrophe? Sounds like something out of myth, right? A tragic legend passed down through the ages? But what if I told you that this was no mere story? That the last Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II, truly believed his empire was predestined to collapse? This isn't just another tale of conquest and war. This is the story of a prophecy so chilling, so precise, that it may have dictated the fall of one of the greatest civilizations. In history, before the first battle had even begun, throughout history, civilizations have placed great importance on omens, believing that the gods communicated their will through signs, through the stars, through nature, through inexplicable events that defied human understanding. The Aztecs were no exception. In their world, the divine and the earthly were inseparable. Every earthquake, every eclipse, every sudden misfortune carried a deeper meaning. And when the gods seemed to send warnings of impending doom, how could they be ignored? The prophecy that destroyed an empire. The last Aztec emperor is a tale of fate, fear, and decisions that shaped history forever. Before the Spanish ships had even appeared on the horizon, whispers of divine warnings had already begun to spread. Priests and soothsayers spoke of strange occurrences, unexplainable lights streaking across the night sky, eerie sounds echoing through the temples, and natural disasters striking at the heart of Tenochtitlan. Were these truly warnings from the gods? Or were they merely coincidences, exaggerated by fear and hindsight? This wouldn't be the first time in history that a prophecy seemed to shape the fate of a ruler. Julius Caesar was warned to beware the Ides of March, and was assassinated on that very day. Napoleon was told he would fall from a great height, and his empire crumbled beneath him. Time and time again, history has shown us that belief in fate can be as powerful as fate itself. And Moctezuma, much like these other leaders, found himself ensnared in a web of prophecy, uncertainty, and impending catastrophe. But here's the real question. Was the prophecy real, or did fear itself become the empire's greatest enemy? If you believe you are doomed, do you act differently? Do you hesitate when you should fight? Do you see enemies where none exist? The prophecy that destroyed an empire. The last Aztec emperor was not just a story told after the fact. It was a force that shaped the very decisions that led to the empire's downfall. But where did this prophecy come from? And why did the Aztecs believe in it so strongly? As we dive deeper into this mystery, we will uncover the ominous signs that haunted the Aztecs in their final days. Were these divine warnings, carefully crafted manipulations, or simply eerie coincidences? The truth may be even more shocking than you think. The omen that shook an empire. Prophecies don't just appear out of thin air. They take root in the hearts of those who believe in them. And when enough people believe, they shape reality itself. For the Aztecs, life and destiny were dictated by the will of the gods. Every eclipse, every famine, every sudden misfortune was not just a random event. It was a message, a warning, a sign. And among all the prophecies that echoed through their temples and sacred texts, one stood above all others: the return of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. Quetzalcoatl was not just another deity in the vast Aztec pantheon. He was a legendary ruler, a divine figure who had once walked among mortals before vanishing into the eastern horizon, vowing one day to return. To the priests and the rulers of Tenochtitlan, this wasn't just a myth, it was an inevitability, a cycle waiting to be completed. So when strange and terrifying omens began to appear, many saw them not as isolated events, but as irrefutable proof that the prophecy was coming true. The first omen was as awe-inspiring as it was terrifying, a streak of fire blazing across the sky, illuminating the night with an unnatural glow. Was it a comet? A meteor? Today, we might recognize it as a simple celestial event, but to the Aztecs, this was a direct message from the heavens, a declaration that the gods were watching, and that something terrible was coming. Then came the second omen. The great temple of Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, burst into flames without any known cause. No enemy had set it alight, no lightning had struck, and yet it burned uncontrollably as if the god himself had abandoned his people. Fear spread like wildfire, but the signs didn't stop there. A lake in the heart of Tenochtitlan, once a symbol of life and prosperity, suddenly vanished without explanation. Imagine waking up to find that a massive body of water had simply disappeared overnight. The earth itself seemed to tremble in protest, as if rejecting the very civilization that had been built upon it. Then, as if nature itself was mourning, eerie wails echoed through the city at night, haunting voices that no one could explain. Some claimed they heard a woman crying out in despair, "My children, we must flee! The end is near." The chilling resemblance to the legend of La Llorona, the weeping woman, has led many to believe that this may have been one of her earliest recorded appearances. In the minds of the people, these were not coincidences. These were undeniable omens of destruction. Today, we understand meteor showers, spontaneous combustion, and geological shifts in ways the Aztecs could not. But knowledge doesn't erase belief. To a society built upon divine law, these were warnings from the gods themselves, warnings that their time was running out. And when an empire begins to believe in its own impending doom, it becomes its own greatest enemy. Fear takes root, doubt spreads, and hesitation becomes fatal. But here's the real question. Were these signs truly foretelling the empire's fall, or were they merely reinterpreted after the fact to fit the narrative of a civilization that had already been destroyed? After all, history is written by the victors. The Spanish chroniclers who recorded these omens did so long after the conquest, shaping the story in a way that justified their actions. Was this truly divine prophecy? Or was it a convenient explanation, one that transformed an act of brutal colonization into something preordained? Regardless of what the truth may be, one thing is certain. These omens set the stage for a ruler already drowning in uncertainty. And when Hernán Cortés and his men finally arrived on the shores of the Aztec Empire, Moctezuma faced a decision that would define the fate of his people forever. Moctezuma and the sealed fate. Moctezuma II was no ordinary ruler. He stood at the helm of one of the most advanced civilizations in the world. The Aztec Empire was a marvel of military strategy, economic prowess, and architectural brilliance. He commanded vast armies, governed an empire of millions, and was regarded as the earthly representative of the gods. And yet, when news came of strange, pale-skinned men arriving from the east, Moctezuma did not react with the strength of a warrior, but with the hesitation of a man shackled by fate. To Moctezuma, this was not just another enemy fleet. It was the fulfillment of the prophecy that destroyed an empire, the last Aztec Emperor. For years, priests had warned that Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, would one day return from the east to reclaim his throne. And now, here they were, foreign men with beards clad in shining metal, arriving on great ships that cut through the waves like celestial beasts. Could this be the long-awaited return of the God King himself? And if so, how could a mere mortal stand against destiny? Faced with this terrifying possibility, Moctezuma hesitated. Should he prepare for war, summoning his legions of elite jaguar and eagle warriors to strike down these outsiders? Or should he embrace them, treating them as divine beings, lest he risk angering a god? This fatal indecision would become his undoing. Instead of responding with force, Moctezuma sent emissaries bearing lavish gifts, gold, jade, rare feathers, and other treasures, to Hernán Cortés, the leader of these foreign visitors. Perhaps he believed that generosity would appease the supposed god. Perhaps he hoped that if he treated them with reverence, they would leave peacefully. But history has proven one undeniable truth. Gold does not satisfy ambition. It fuels it. When Cortés and his men arrived in Tenochtitlan, they were awestruck. The city was unlike anything they had ever seen. Grand temples stretching toward the heavens, dazzling palaces, bustling markets filled with goods from every corner of the empire. It was wealth beyond their wildest imaginations. And Moctezuma, the ruler of this empire, welcomed them with open arms. He led Cortés through the grand causeways of the city, housed him in a luxurious palace, and showered him with gifts. To the Spanish, this was not just hospitality, it was a sign of weakness. If this emperor was truly as powerful as they had heard, why did he bow so easily? But while Moctezuma struggled with his faith, his people saw things more clearly. To the Aztec nobility, this was nothing short of betrayal. How could their emperor, chosen by the gods, kneel before foreigners? Was he truly honoring Quetzalcoatl, or had fear robbed him of his judgment? Whispers of unrest spread like wildfire. The warriors who had spent their lives defending the empire felt humiliated. The priests questioned whether the gods had abandoned them. The illusion of peace was crumbling. And then, the inevitable happened. The Spanish, once honored guests, became captors. Moctezuma was taken prisoner in his own palace, reduced to nothing more than a puppet under Cortés' control. The mighty emperor of the Aztecs, the most powerful man in Mesoamerica, was now a prisoner in his own home. And yet, even in captivity, he remained passive. He still believed in the prophecy, still feared that to resist was to challenge fate itself. But his people did not share his resignation. Rage boiled over in the streets of Tenochtitlan. The warriors, the priests, the citizens, they would not sit idly by and watch their empire fall without a fight. The city erupted into chaos as the Aztecs revolted against their uninvited guests. Battle broke out in the very heart of Tenochtitlan, and suddenly Moctezuma was no longer useful to the Spanish. Accounts of his death vary. Some say he was struck down by his own people, furious at his weakness. Others claim that the Spanish, realizing he had lost control of the empire, executed him. Either way, one thing is certain. The man who could have led his people to war instead became a symbol of surrender. With Moctezuma gone, the empire stood at a crossroads. The prophecy had foretold their doom, but could they still change their fate? The city was now in open rebellion, and the Spanish, along with their indigenous allies, were preparing for the ultimate siege of Tenochtitlan. The final battle was coming. Would the Aztecs manage to defy their foretold destruction, or was the prophecy truly inescapable? The prophecy is fulfilled. The fall of Tenochtitlan. The air in Tenochtitlan was thick with the scent of war, blood, smoke, and desperation. The once thriving heart of the Aztec Empire, a city of temples that touched the sky and canals that shimmered under the sun, had become an inferno of chaos. Warriors, priests, and citizens alike filled the streets, ready to fight to the last breath. Moctezuma was dead, but his people had not surrendered. If the gods had truly abandoned them, they would make their final stand one worthy of legend. The fate of the empire now rested in the hands of those willing to defy the prophecy that destroyed an empire, the last Aztec emperor. The Spanish, though vastly outnumbered, wielded advantages that no amount of Aztec bravery could overcome. Their steel armor turned aside obsidian blades. Their muskets struck down warriors before they could even close the distance. Their war horses trampled through the narrow streets, spreading panic wherever they rode. And most dangerous of all, their forces were not just Spanish. They were bolstered by thousands of indigenous allies, former subjects of the empire who saw this war as a chance for revenge. The Aztecs, once the conquerors, now found themselves besieged by those they had once ruled. Yet they fought. Oh, how they fought! Every street became a battleground, every temple a fortress. The warriors of Tenochtitlan, armed with their fierce devotion to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, refused to bow to their foreign invaders. They lured the Spanish into ambushes, rained down projectiles from rooftops, and turned the once grand causeways into death traps. They fought not just for survival, but for honor, for their ancestors, for their gods, for the very soul of the empire. And for a moment it seemed they might hold the city. But then came the silent killer. Smallpox had arrived in Tenochtitlan before the final battle had even begun, carried unknowingly by the Spanish. Within weeks, it spread like wildfire, consuming the city faster than any army could. The disease tore through the population, striking down warriors, priests, and commoners alike. Entire families perished in their homes, their bodies left unburied as there were too few survivors left to tend to the dead. The strongest Aztec warriors, those who had once stood at the front lines, fell before they could even lift their weapons. To many, this was no mere sickness. It was a curse, a final judgment from the gods, sealing the empire's fate. How do you fight an enemy you cannot see? As the weeks dragged on, the mighty city of Tenochtitlan, once the envy of Mesoamerica, was reduced to a crumbling ruin. The Spanish forces pushed forward relentlessly, breaking through the last lines of defense. Starvation and disease had done what even the fiercest warriors could not. The city was on its knees. The lakes and canals once filled with life now carried the dead. The Great Pyramids, once places of worship, now burned under the foreign sun. And then, on August 13th, 1521, it was over. Cuauhtémoc, the last true ruler of the Aztec Empire, was captured while attempting to flee across the lake. With his surrender, the empire ceased to exist. What had once been the most powerful civilization in Mesoamerica was now nothing more than a chapter in history, one written in blood, betrayal, and the whispers of a prophecy that had haunted its final days. But here's the real question: did the prophecy truly come to pass? Or was it a self-fulfilling nightmare? Moctezuma had spent years fearing the return of Quetzalcoatl, and in the end, that very fear may have doomed his empire. If he had resisted from the start, if he had fought instead of hesitated, could history have been different? Could the Aztecs have stood against the Spanish if they had never believed in their own inevitable destruction? Or did the Spanish, masters of manipulation, use the prophecy to weaken the resolve of their greatest enemy before the first sword was ever drawn? And what if the prophecy had never existed at all? Would the Aztecs have defended their empire with unwavering confidence instead of surrendering to fear? Or was their fate sealed the moment the Spanish set foot on their shores? History is full of haunting what-ifs, but one thing is undeniable. The fall of Tenochtitlan was more than a military defeat. It was the collapse of an entire worldview, a civilization built on faith, now shattered by doubt, disease, and deception. But the story doesn't end there, because if history has taught us anything, it's that prophecies don't just predict the future, they shape it. And even today, the power of belief continues to influence the fate of entire nations. The dark legacy of the prophecy. The fall of Tenochtitlan was more than just the end of an empire. It was the beginning of a new kind of rule, one built not only on conquest, but on the control of belief itself. The prophecy that destroyed an empire. The last Aztec emperor was not just a prediction, it became a weapon. The Spanish didn't just crush the Aztecs with steel and gunpowder, they shattered their spirit by making them believe their fate had already been sealed. After all, why fight against the will of the gods? This wasn't just a moment in history, it was part of a much larger pattern, one that has repeated itself across civilizations and centuries. Think about it. How many times have rulers used religion and prophecy to justify their power? The Roman emperors claimed divine right, medieval kings pointed to omens to validate their wars, and even modern leaders have used the idea of destiny to shape the way people think. The Spanish understood this well. By reinforcing the belief that the Aztecs were meant to fall, they didn't just win a war, they rewrote reality itself. It's easy to dismiss this as an ancient problem, but let's take a step back. How much has really changed? Do we still allow ourselves to be controlled by prophecies, by narratives that tell us what is and isn't possible? What if the Aztecs had never believed in their own downfall? Would they have resisted more fiercely like the Maya, who continued guerrilla warfare for centuries? Or like the Inca, who, despite being outmatched, led decades of rebellion against Spanish rule? The Aztecs, on the other hand, hesitated. Did their belief in the prophecy weaken them before the battle even began? History isn't just about the past, it's a mirror reflecting our present. We may not live under the rule of gods demanding blood sacrifices, but we still see societies shaped by the power of belief. Wars have been fought, empires have risen and fallen, all because people accepted certain ideas as inevitable. Even in modern times, political leaders, corporations, and media figures use the same tactics, convincing entire populations that certain events are unavoidable, that history moves in only one direction. But is that true? Or are we, like the Aztecs, sometimes trapped by the stories we choose to believe? And if prophecies still shape our world today, the real question is, can we break free from them? The Aztecs believed they were doomed, and in the end their empire was destroyed. But does that mean it was truly fate? Or was it fear? Because when people believe their defeat is inevitable, they stop fighting before the battle even begins. They surrender not to an enemy, but to an idea. This is the dark legacy of prophecy. It can be a guiding light or an invisible cage. It can inspire people to greatness, or convince them that resistance is pointless. And that's why this story isn't just about the past, it's a lesson for the present. So, what do you think? Was the Aztec Empire truly doomed by fate, or was the prophecy just another tool of control? And if history is shaped by belief, then the biggest question of all is, who is shaping yours? What do you think? So, was the fall of the Aztec Empire truly written in the stars? Or was it the result of fear, manipulation, and human choices? Did the prophecy actually dictate history, or was it simply a convenient narrative, crafted after the fact to justify what happened? The deeper we dig into the past, the clearer it becomes. History isn't just about events, it's about the way we interpret them. And sometimes the greatest empires aren't destroyed by swords or gunpowder, but by the beliefs that control them. Now, let's turn the question to you. Do you think Moctezuma's fear of prophecy doomed the Aztecs? If he had resisted from the start, could the empire have survived? Or was the Spanish conquest inevitable, prophecy or not? And here's something even more thought-provoking. Do we still fall into the same traps today? How many times have people surrendered to fate, not because they were truly defeated, but because they believed they had already lost? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let's discuss, was the prophecy real, or was it just another tool of control? Your perspective matters, and history is best understood when we challenge it, debate it, and rethink what we thought we knew. And if you love unraveling the forgotten mysteries of history, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Here, we dive into the hidden truths, lost legends, and shocking secrets that still shape our world today. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video, because trust me, there's so much more to uncover.